So with that, I will hand it over to Joy and just make you host there, Joy.
Perfect. Can everybody hear me okay?
You're a little bit quiet.
Oh, I wonder what I can do in that case. I'm planning to share a screen to go over a few slides from the IRCC's website, official website, to just go over. And this, to me, it serves multiple purpose. Of one is to help students to know where to get official information instead of listen to he says, who says that, right? And another is to show you how to do a little bit of research or your own information finding sometimes if you have doubts for your working eligibility. So can everybody hear me okay? It's still quiet or turn on?
Oh, you sound good. Sorry, my volume is down.
No, that's okay. I'm standing. I apologize, everybody. I couldn't sit anymore, so I'm standing at my desk. So if you see me move around, that's because I'm standing. Okay, so without further delay, so I'd like to share my screen. So bear with me here for a minute, share, and go. Perfect. Can everybody here see the screen right now? Oh, am I sharing the right screen? You should be seeing IRCC's official website front page. Perfect. So I'm gonna shut my video off just to keep the quality of audio. Is that okay? Yeah, okay, perfect. And how do I do that? There we go. Okay, so now, so welcome everybody, and I'm very happy to join everyone here today. And we are, the goal for me today is to show you how to find official information and to learn about your working eligibility while you're in Canada. Some of you may not have arrived in Canada yet, but once you're here, these will be important for you. So for now, let's look at, so the official website of IRCC, so Immigration, Refugee, Citizenship, and Canada, the website is cic.gc.ca, so you would know anything ends, the website, anything ends with .gc.ca, usually that is the government official website. It stands for Government of Canada. So we're going into the front page. All right, and if you scroll down and you can see services and information, usually I direct students to go to study. Okay, so today I would like to divide the information into three parts. First part, I'd like to talk about on and off campus. And another part, I'd like to talk about a little bit about the placement, co-op, and the last part would be a post-graduation work permit. We're gonna keep it short and sweet and don't wanna give too much information to overwhelm you since you still have other things to consider. So for here, you can see on this page, it tells you how to apply for study permit, how to extend your study permit. All of these are official information. Feel free to browse at a later time, but right now, I'm going to go to this section, working or traveling as a student, okay? So what I have talked about earlier that I'm going to divide information into three parts. First part would be, we're gonna click on working while studying. So as you can see, as a study permit holder in Canada, you are eligible to work full-time off campus while you're on a break. And while you're on the academic session, you can work 20 hours per week, okay? So we're gonna look at on campus and off campus. In this case, we're gonna look at on campus first. Did I hear some weird noise? Is it from me? Or is it someone's microphone or not off? Okay. So if you click on work on campus, it will bring you to the website where it gives you divided information as a study permit holder, what type of employment you could engage only when you're meeting the requirement. So now, as most of you may know, that with a study permit and on your study permit, it has to have a wording to say that you may engage on or off campus working or employment in Canada while you're meeting the criteria. Okay, so what are the criteria? So we're gonna jump because these are the same. Okay, I just wanna click on it. The eligibility requirements are the same. These are the very important things to keep in mind. We're going to go over the eligibility. Okay, so I'm not going to read the website. You can read the website. I'm only going to summarize for everyone. So basically, in order to work on or off campus, number one thing you have to remember is that you have to be a registered full-time student in an eligible program. So what is eligible program? So eligible program would consider it has to have at least 6 months long, and it leads to an educational credential. So that means a degree, diploma, or certificate. And also in this paragraph, immigration talked about designated learning institution, and it has to be a post-secondary school that is academic, vocational, or professional training program. So you don't have to worry about the school part, okay? So by coming to Fanshawe, you have already ensured that you met half of the requirement, which is we are an eligible school, and most of our programs are eligible. I can say 99% of our programs are eligible. We don't, usually if that program is not eligible for working in Canada or post-graduation work permit, we usually do not open the registration for international students. So you don't have to worry about that part, okay? So you have to be a full-time student, registered full-time student in order to work 20 hours per week while you're on your academic session, and full-time during the break. So what considered as a break? So break means between two academic semesters or between two programs. If you have completed one program full-time and then waiting for the next program to start, and that program, second program, has to start within 150 days from the first date of from the first program end date. So during that time, you're also eligible to work full-time. So immigration also made an exemption. So what is the exemption? The only time you could work part-time, you could still have your working eligibility while you're on a part-time is when you're completing your program. So which is this part, okay? So when you're completing your program continuously full-time, but you need to add one extra part-time term at the very end of the program to finish that program. So one program only allows to have a one part-time term at the very end of your program. If this part-time term appears in the middle of the program, you will not be eligible to work. So just to keep in mind, the allocation of the part-time term has to be the very end of it, okay? So that is off campus. So hand in hand with on campus. So if you're eligible to work full-time, so if you're eligible to work off campus, you are eligible to work on campus. That goes hand in hand. And that 20 hours per week is only for off campus. So if you have, let's say, if you work in Walmart as a cashier, for example, that's considered 20 hours per week as off campus. So in addition, so remember the word is in addition. So on top of your 20 hours per week, let's say if you can become a peer tutor on campus for your classmate, that hour is not part of the 20 hours, is in addition to the 20 hours. So You could have both on-campus job and off-campus job at the same time, but you have to keep in mind your off-campus employment hours cannot be more than 20 hours per week. And this, just to make a note of that, 20 hours per week is not average. So sometimes we have a student ask, oh, I work 10 hours this week and I work 30 hours next week. The answer is no. So every 7 days, 20 hours reset. It doesn't matter which day you count that 7 days. You could start on Wednesday to next Wednesday, or you could start on Monday until next Monday. So between every 7 days, you have 20 hours. Okay. I see a lot of a chat popping in here. So Laura, if you want,
Yeah.
I can pause in between informations, not a problem for me.
For sure.
I'm happy to pause and answer some questions here. I'm looking at the questions as well.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
so far, I hope everybody is clear.
Yeah, it's really important information, and I certainly encourage everyone to give your full focus and attention to Joy. If you do have any questions, certainly note them down in the chat, and I can relay those to Joy either during the presentation or at the end of the presentation. I am seeing quite a lot of questions in the chat about COVID readiness forums, class schedules, and what I would say to you students is we do have some contact information for those types of questions, and I'll put that in the chat now. But for this session, I just really strongly encourage you to pay attention to what Joy is saying, and we'll have an opportunity to address some of those questions later, some of the more technical questions about schedules.
Okay, that's awesome. I just don't want to miss everybody. So
yeah.
It's okay to ask a question. So if I could stop, I will stop and answer your question, address your question right away. If I see a question that can be addressed while you're listening to my talk, and that's okay. Okay, so I just went over the on-campus and off-campus. I hope everybody is clear on that. If not, you're welcome to go back to the website. So let me just go here, copy and the paste. So everybody has that. Okay, so because I think later on everyone will have access to the chat. Would we? So you can keep that.
Yeah, we'll have access to the chat.
So
yeah.
we do have some questions here, right? So can we work during midterm breaks full-time? Yes, you can, as long as you're maintaining a good student, like a registered full-time student. Usually we tell students your GPA has to be above 2.0, okay? But immigration right now, they took out that part of the requirement. I don't know why, but you are still required to remain or registered as a full-time student in order to work. Okay, that's a very important concept for you to grasp. So next, I'm going to move on to the co-op work permit or any working component that is part of your program for educational. We call it educational employment. Okay, so can everybody still see my shared screen? Is it still on the immigration's website? Yeah. Okay, perfect. So let's move up here so we can click on work as a co-op student. Okay, I'm going through the key information that I want everybody to have that in your mind. If you need extra information, you need to clarification, I want to save the time at the end of the presentation so we could have some time to answer your question. And also I just share the link with everybody. You can keep that link, save it in your browser, and at a later time, if you have any questions, you can go back to check. So I just thought about that. I forgot one important point about off-campus. So often students asking how many hours I can work as when I'm working full-time. Is there a number of hours for full-time? The answer is no, really not. The number of full-time hours are identified by your employer, okay? So if you are employed by Walmart, you need to ask Walmart, I'm on a summer vacation now, I can work full-time. What is your full-time hours? So I'll give you an example. Full-time hours are varies, okay? So for us, Laura and me, we work 35 hours. That's our full-time hour. Anything above that, that's overtime. But our managers, they work 37.5 hours. So their full-time is different than ours. And some, if you work in a manufacturing factors or some shift workers, you may work 42, 44 hours a week. It happens, right? So you need to check with your employer. Immigration does not have a identified number of hours for full-time. This is just for you to understand that part, okay? Perfect. So now I'm gonna move on to work as a co-op student or intern, okay? So many of you, your programs may contain working component. What is considered as working component? Working component considered as if you go into a workplace to perform as a worker or as an employee or do whatever they are doing, the employees there, okay? So immigration doesn't really have the restriction on to say this working component has to be paid. So whether you're paid or not, that is not part of the consideration for educational purpose work, okay? So for example, we have a PSW program, you have placement, okay? And for supply chain management program, you have a co-op. Are co-op same as a placement? No, they're not the same, okay? So co-op, you can participate, you can choose not to participate, you can still graduate without a co-op endorsement. And that does not interfere or does not negatively impact your eligibility to apply for a post-graduation work permit. On the other hand, the example I gave for PSW program. So PSW program has a placement, or ECE program have a placement or internship. Can you not do that? Can you not participate in your placement? The answer is no, because the placement, internship, they carries credits. If you don't complete your placement, or you fail your placement, you will not be able to graduate, which means if you don't do your placement, if you don't successfully fulfill your placement requirement, you will fail your program, meaning that you will not be eligible to apply for a post-graduation work permit, okay? That's the difference between co-op and anything else. Anything else could be called a placement, could be called internship, could be called a practicum. There's many names, okay? So don't get confused. So for the working authorization purpose, does immigration going to give 10 different names for the same work permit? No, of course not. So in that case, the immigration is calling it a co-op work permit, okay? So co-op work permit is required as long as you have a working component in the program, and it doesn't matter if it's required or it's not required, as long as it's part of your program, okay? It either is a co-op, either it's a placement or internship, you have to have both a study permit and a co-op work permit, okay? So we talked about on and off campus. That is governed by your study permit. Remember earlier I said on your study permit, it has to say you may accept employment. When you only have a study permit, can you work in your placement for PSW? Can you work in your co-op term for supply chain management? The answer is no. You are required to have 2 permits, okay? So 2 permits, one is called a study permit, one is called a co-op work permit. But on this work permit, it will not, the title of the permit, it will not say co-op. It will say, just say work permit. How do we know that is the co-op work permit? When you look at the employer, so who is your employer on that work permit? If it says Fanshawe College, okay, or even sometimes it will say open. But then if you continue read the conditions on the work permit, you will see that immigration has clearly stated this work permit is only for educational purpose, is only for a essential working component of your program. So when you see that, you know that that is a co-op work permit, and you cannot use that co-op work permit to work on or off campus. That's two separate things. I just want everybody make sure they understand this is very, very clear. So we have Jose here says, my connection is a bit of unstable. I think we have the session recorded. Yeah, so you can watch it later. It's okay. All right. So that's about co-op work permit. So sometimes if you're working in a restricted area, so such as if you work as a PSW, if you work with children, if you work in the hospital as a health worker, then that co-op work permit often requires a valid medical exam. That medical exam has to be performed by an IRCC's doctor. So most of you, I'm not sure, today's audiences, are you, like if you're outside of Canada, have not arrived in Canada, but you have already applied for your study permit, you most likely, if I'm hoping everybody applied for co-op work permit together with your study permit. So the reason you know if you have a working component or not, it is indicated on your letter of admission. Okay, so if everybody look at your letter of admission, you can read, so make sure you read it carefully. On your letter of admission, we have a clear indication of whether or not you have a working component. Okay, so when you see that, you know that you need to request for study permit and the co-op work permit together. Now we have a question of some students saying, oh, I didn't know that, and I'm not sure if my agent applied for me. Not a problem if you didn't do it. When you come back, when you arrive in Canada, then you're eligible to apply for a co-op work permit. So just so you know, you cannot apply for a co-op work permit by itself from outside of Canada. Okay, that's a very important information for you to know. And if you haven't applied for your, if you haven't applied for your co-op work permit together with your study permit, upon your arrival, the officer cannot issue your co-op work permit together with your study permit. They will not. You would have to apply. To apply for co-op work permit by itself, there's no cost. Okay, so there's no application fees, but you may or may not have to do a medical exam within Canada, may or may not, depending on what your working component is, your program is. So when that happens, you don't know what to do, make appointment with our life coordinator for immigration advising. Okay. All right. I hope that's clear for co-op work permit. So the two takeaway key information is, one is that you must have both permits for if you have a program, have a placement, have a working component, have a co-op. So you have to have two. Okay, one study permit, one work permit stated Fanshawe is your employer, or some were saying it's for educational purpose. Okay, and another point of information is for you to know that you cannot apply for co-op work permit by itself from outside of Canada. But please don't panic. There's no need to panic. Okay, if you didn't apply from outside, once you arrive in Canada, we'll help you with that. And also, just so you know, you don't need the work permit right away. Okay, usually the working component happens at least after one term. All right, perfect. So yes, Zim, yes, you would have to apply for co-op work permit after you arrive in Canada. Okay. So now let's move on to the post-graduation work permit. We're going to click on stay in Canada after graduation. So this is called a post-graduation work permit. And in short form, everybody knows it's called the Pdwp. Okay, so I don't want to give too much information, but just for you to keep in mind, okay, to apply for post-graduation, to be eligible to apply for a post-graduation work permit. So these are the requirements. So eligibility criteria. So feel free to read. Okay, guys, I'm gonna share this again, this link in the chat box, so everybody has it. So I'm going to summarize this whole thing here. That it's a lot to read. Okay, I'm going to summarize it for you. So for a person to be fully eligible to apply for the post-graduation work permit, your program or your programs, if you do two programs in Fanshawe, so each program, yes?
Sorry to interrupt you, Joy. We just had one last question related to co-op that hopefully we can touch on before we get into this. If a student's program does not have a co-op component, should they still apply? No. Okay.
If your program doesn't have a working component, you don't need a co-op work permit. Co-op work permit is only for educational purpose work. Okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. So I see another question to me directly. So if you send me direct message, I may not have time to read it as I talk. So just do a to everyone, so everyone can learn as well. Just don't ask anything pertaining your personal information, because sometimes we learn from each other by asking questions. Sometimes you say, oh, that person asked that question, I want to ask it too, but I never thought about it, right? So Jaceline, I'm just gonna read out loud your question, hope you don't mind. You said, will immigration officer give me co-op work permit if I already have it in my student visa, or I need to inform somebody before landing in Canada? Please reply. So I'm not quite understanding your question. You cannot give a co-op work permit in a student visa. Okay, you need to check with your agent when they apply for student visa or study permit. Did they request for a co-op work permit together? Okay, so usually when you receive your approval letter, how do you know if you have already requested a co-op work permit? Your document number will show as a U start with U. Okay, and on the type of documents, it will show WP/SP or WP somewhere saying that. Okay, so double check that. The key information is that if you didn't apply at the same time when you apply for study permit, the officer will not issue it when you land in Canada. Then you have to apply after. Okay, so if you're not sure whether or not you have requested together with your study permit, check your approval letter, check with your agent. And if you're not sure whether or not you have a working component in your program, check your letter of admission we issue to you. Okay, hope that answers your question. Perfect. So for a post-graduation work permit, 3 parts for you to remember today. You don't need to remember everything I said today, but I want you to take away some key information. Number 1, each program has to be completed continuously full-time. Okay, in here, immigration clearly said you have to maintain full-time student status. Okay, in each, somehow my mouse doesn't work. So in each semester of your program, so every semester you have to be in full-time. The only exemption, again, that goes back to the off-campus. You could be part-time student at the very end of your program for 1 semester. That is the exemption. Middle of the program, you were full-time, part-time, full-time, part-time, finishing, not good. Okay, very big risk. So you need to make sure full-time, part-time, finish, right? So that's one thing to keep in mind. And for you to be eligible for a post-graduation work permit, your program have to at least 8 months long, okay? We don't have any program that is shorter than that, so you don't have to worry. A lot of the time, students check on our website. Some of our 8 months program says 30 week or something like that. I don't know if Laura, you're familiar with. So there's some information on our website. It's really altered. Like they're directly for domestic student. They're telling you how many weeks, but we don't do that for international student. All your letters, all your admission letters, your program completion letter, your certificate, everything, it's a 1-year certificate, right? So you don't have to worry about that part. And another key information for you to understand that, which I don't like how immigration now changed this part of information, okay? So they tell you, IRCC says, oh, okay, you have 180 days after your program completion to apply for a Pdwp. Is that true? Yes, it is true. But is it good to wait that long? No, it's not, because your study permit becomes invalid automatically 90 days after your program completion date. So we're continue advising students to make sure after you complete your program, you need to apply before your study permit expires, which is within 90 days, 90, okay, from the program completion date, okay? If you don't, what's going to happen? I'm going to show you what is going to happen. If you don't apply for your work permit within 90 days from the program completion date while your study permit is still valid. So when I say study permit is still valid, for you to know that your study permit expiry date on your study permit, if you, for example, if you applied for 2 years program, come to Canada, your study permit is 2 year plus 3 months. But then later you change your mind, I don't want to do 2 year, I'm going to do 1 year. And after this 1 year, I'm going to apply for a post-graduation work permit. Can you do that? Yes, you can. But what's going to happen is that then your study permit becomes automatically invalid in 90 days. So it doesn't matter what is the expiry date printed on that study permit, it becomes invalid automatically. That's what you need to remember. So if you didn't apply for your post-graduation work permit within 90 days, what's going to happen to you? Number one, you're going to become out of status in Canada. So when you apply for your post-graduation work permit, you have to apply for restoration as a student and the Ptwp at the same time. Another thing happened to you is that you cannot work once you applied for the post-graduation work permit if you applied after 90 days from your program's end date. You don't lose your eligibility to apply for work permit, but you cannot work, you cannot leave Canada, nothing, right? You have to wait until your application is being approved. And also you have to pay way more. So this is how much you have to pay. So let me see if it's, oh, sorry, it's here. So if you just apply for a post-graduation work permit, it's $255. If you don't apply for your work permit within 90 days, if you waited for beyond the 90 days, lost your status, would start to work right away. Okay, you may begin to work full-time as soon as you applied for the Pdwp. You don't even have to wait for it's being approved. Okay, that is all the information I want to talk about. And again, I'm just summarized all the information from the website for you to know. And I give you guys the link for the website. I'm going to do it again now, just I know because everybody asking questions. Okay, so you guys have that information. I know we are here until what, 10:30, right? So I want to leave the rest of the time for for a student to be able to ask a question. Okay?
Okay, so would you like me to just toss them over to you, Joy?
Sure.
Okay. So we had a question about a student whose study permit, it says SW1. So does this mean that they have a co-op work permit?
Right, that should be, yes.
Oh, okay.
Student worker, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So Nisha's asking about the policies if someone is starting a course online in their home country and whether or not they'd still be eligible to apply for a post-graduation work permit.
You can study until December 31st of this year to finish your program. That is considered eligible if you're still outside of Canada doing it online. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share that link with everybody so you have it. Okay, so keep going. I'm just looking, so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, but I will share the link. Yes, go ahead.
So Fazila has a question here. Oh, shoot, I lost it. So she's asking about whether or not a student would be required to have a full-time job for postgraduate work permit application.
No, not at all. Whether you have a job, that's not a part of the consideration. As long as your program completed continuously full-time with the exemption of one final term as a part-time, you're eligible for Ptwp. You don't need to have a job. You don't need to have a job offer. Okay? So I just shared, oh, I don't know why I keep on sharing with Jesseline. I have to choose it. Sorry, Jesseline. So this is the information that student is asking whether or not they will be eligible for Pdwp if they're continue studying online from outside of Canada. The information is all there. Okay, so you have it until December of this year.
Okay, so Luis is asking the 90 days should be printed in the study permit. My study permit has the end date in the same month his course ends. So what should a student do if their study permit has the same date as the end of their course?
Extend your study permit. So legally, your study permit should be 90 days. Expiry date should be 90 days after your program end date. Okay, so I'm going to share with everybody. So you go ahead, Laura, I can do multiple things.
So Michelle's asking if Fanshawe helps students to apply for the work permit or if they just apply online.
It's okay, so that question hits multiple things. Okay, do we help? Yes, we do. We provide you tutorial video, we provide everybody workshop you can attend, we will guide you to apply. Do you apply online with immigration? Yes, it is an online application you submitted on your own through immigration's online portal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, perfect. Okay.
So Harpreet's asking when should you apply for a postgraduate work permit? Should they apply before complete?
No, within 90 days from the program completion date. So for example, this term ends on August 13th, okay? So you have to apply within 90 days after August 13th. So your deadline most likely is going to be November 11th, I would say, because we have 31 days, 1 month, right? Okay, so I just share the link with everybody, okay? It's our academic calendar, okay? So when we issue your when we issue your letter of admission, we use the end date of every month because the academic calendar changes sometimes for the end date for each term. So the end date on your LOA is not accurate, okay? It is for the officer to know that you need a study permit 90 days from that date. So if your program ends on August 31st, your study permit should be in on November 30th. Okay, that's legally immigration officer have to do that. If they didn't, something went wrong, okay? So if your program ends on August the 13th, your study permit expires on August the 30th, what to do? Extend your study permit, okay? So I will show, oh, I just shut off the share screen, but if you go to the link I gave you, you look at study permit, it clearly said your study permit needs to be 90 days valid after your program completion date, okay?
Perfect. Hey, June is asking about the minimum number of credits that need to be earned to be eligible for a postgraduate work permit.
There's no such thing. We're college, we don't count by credits, okay? Although there are certain programs you have to meet the credits requirements because each course carries the credits. In the end, we have to add it together. Universities, you pay credits, right? You pay by credits, not in college, per term. So you need to finish your program. If your program is a one-year program, you need to finish your program at least the 2 full-time semesters. There's no counting credits for Pdwp. Okay.
So really it's length of attendance, length of program, right?
Right. Your credential, your learning. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So sorry, just going through here. Dorothy was asking about for working part-time once you're studying. How soon can students start working? Do they have to wait until they start their program before they can start working?
Correct. You cannot work if your program has not started yet. You can work 0 hours. Okay. Until your program, you're coming for September, your program starts, the term, or I just shared with academic calendar, our term starts on September 7th. That's what immigration has, the same information. So you start to work 20 hours per week on September 7th, not September 1st, okay?
Okay. So Rohan has kind of an interesting question here. He may complete a program in May. He's wondering if he could get a work permit before accepting admission to a new program in September.
So just one thing for everybody to know that Pdwp is a once a lifetime, okay? So why would you apply for a Pdwp between 2 programs? You can stack 2 programs on top of each other, apply for the work permit. 1 + 1, you can apply together. You don't need a post-graduation work permit to work between 2 programs. Working between 2 programs less than 150 days full-time, that is governed by your study permit. Okay?
All right. So okay, sorry about this. So how long, if a student is only taking a 1-year program, how long would their work permit be after they graduated?
Up to 1 year. Okay,
and if they
so
completed it.
Right. So go back to the link I shared. On the link, it tells you how long you're eligible for post-graduation work permit. Okay, the officer who is looking at your application will determine, they will make their own decision. We as a college, we cannot guarantee how long your work permit will be. Does 1 + 1 = 3? Like what if you do 2 1-year programs? Not necessarily, okay? The officer could give you up to 3 years. So most students following our instructions to apply for Pdwp, if they do 1 + 1, usually they get 3 years, but we cannot guarantee that. We don't issue the work permit. Up to the officer how they interpret your work permit. Sorry, your studies in Canada. Okay, so just want to remind everybody, if somebody promised you 3 years work permit, that is a false promise, okay? So we always say up to 3 years if you do 2 years of study. Although for the differences between 1 + 1 program versus a 2-year diploma, right? Are they the same? Yes, they are the same, okay? because you study 4 full-time semesters. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't, unfortunately, we don't determine how long your work permit will be, but we can only tell you you're eligible to get that much, okay?
Great. Okay, we have a question from Ricardo. He's asking if the postgraduate work permit is issued after the study permit expires.
Nope.
So the end of the question is, can they still work normally until their postgraduate work permit is issued, or should they stop working altogether?
Nope. So none of that. Okay. You're sharing your information. Okay. So if you applied for your post-graduation work permit within 90 days from your program end date, while your study permit is still valid, then you work full-time. Okay. Doesn't matter how long the Pdwp process takes. I can tell you, as long as I've seen 8 months, some people wait for 8 months for their work permit. Does that mean you have to stop working on your study permit expiry date? Not at all. You can continue to work until immigration makes a decision. Okay, that's one thing for you to know. Another thing, I think in the question they asked the issuance of your work permit. So your work permit will be valid from the date the officer made the decision. Has nothing to do when your study permit expires. So if they give you 3 years, then it will be 3 years from the date they made a decision. Okay? So if it took an officer 8 months to make a decision on your work permit and you're eligible, he is giving you 3 years, then guess what? You essentially can work in Canada 3 years plus 8 months, because those 8 months are gift. Okay, does that make sense?
It's a time when delayed processing works in your advantage, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You're not punished by the delayed process. You can continue to work.
So just apply early within the deadlines, and then kind of just then you're taking care of your responsibilities.
That's right. That's it. In Canada, it's about you do what you can and leave the rest to flow.
Yeah. All right. So we have another question from Nisha here. She's asking, after the postgraduate work permit, are there any other options to continue working in Canada? Are you able to extend the postgraduate work permit?
Okay. So the post-graduation work permit cannot be extended. The only time the post-graduation work permit can be extended if, let's say, you did a 2-year program or 2 1-year programs, you're eligible for 3 years, then the officer is giving you 3 years, but then your passport is only valid for 1 year or 2 year. So any immigration documents cannot be issued beyond the passport validity. In that case, the officer will make a note in your records and on your post-graduation work permit to say the work permit is only issued based on validity of your passport. Then once you have a new passport, you can ask for the remaining balance on your work permit. That's the only case or only option to extend the study post-graduation work permit, but you still have to pay another set of fees. Okay. In the other cases, then the work permit cannot be extended. Okay. Is there any other way to continue to work in Canada? Yes, there is. For example, your employer can ask for a labor market impact assessment to show to the government only Nisha can work. This job only Nisha can do. No any other Canadians can do that, what she can do. So they have to prove that to the government. If the government agrees, then you get a labor market impact assessment done, positive, then you apply for work permit based on that. Okay, and that work permit becomes a closed or employer specific work permit. Okay, so and of course there's some other ways to work, but that's beyond our advising scope. I will not be able to do that. Okay, so let's see, I think Laura is busy right now. That's okay, so I will carry on. So someone is asking, can you send us your info so we can contact you individually? We have a appointment link for students to make appointment with different advisors. Okay, it doesn't have to be me. I'm happy to help, of course. Let me just share the appointment link that where student can make appointment with a student advisor for immigration advising. You can definitely do that. I will give you guys the link. Okay, that's the link for you to make appointments. All right. Let me see if there's any other question I missed. Earlier, I see someone is asking about spouse. Okay, so when your study permit holder, your spouse is eligible to do a open work permit extension. But when you're changing your status from a student to a work permit holder, which is Pdwp, your spouse's work permit eligibility is not automatically, okay? The officer has to be satisfied that you are a skilled worker in Canada. Again, the link I shared earlier, I'm happy to share it again. If you guys lost it, I'm happy to share it again with you if you need it to learn about eligibility for your spouse, okay? Any other questions? If my study permit I got said must leave by 2022 September 30th, that's right. So if your study permit said you have to leave by that date, then you have to leave. If you don't want to leave, you have to do something about it. For example, you apply for study permit extension or you apply for post-graduation work permit. Every permit has that line. You must leave on the date of the expiry date. Okay, that's nothing unusual, very normal, part of the practice.
Sorry about that. I
no,
missed
that's
you guys
okay.
there for a minute. So I don't know if we started from the bottom or we continued on, but Ishelle was wondering about paying taxes when you're working as a part-time student in Canada. Is that something students need to be concerned about?
Yeah, yes and no. So I'd say if your employer is using a SIN number to pay you, right? So everybody gets a SIN number if you're eligible to work in Canada. So that's a good question. Reminded me to remind everybody, social insurance number is not a working permission. Okay, having a social insurance number and having your study permit that you may work in Canada, it doesn't mean you can. Again, we go back to what I have reiterated, is that you have to be a registered full-time student in order to work. Okay, so having a social insurance number, it's not a working permit, but having a social insurance number, allowing your employer to do their obligations, which is paying their part of taxes, right? So if you have income in Canada and you live in Canada more than 6 months, you have to do, not have to, I shouldn't say have to, you're obligated to file your income taxes. So your employer is obligated to give you a form, it's called a T4, and use that T4 form. It tracks how much money you make, how much taxes you pay, or your employer pay, and then you can file your income taxes. I never get clear on those things. I'm not good at those, but I can tell you that a foreign national in Canada on a permits, you are obligated to do tax if you make income, if you have income, okay? If you're staying here more than 6 months out of 12 months, you're obligated to do if you have income. All right, that's all. That's as much as I can say.
Okay. So we have a question from Gina. She's asking if a 4-month gap between 2 programs will cause an issue with the postgraduate work permit.
Nope.
Nope. Okay,
No
perfect.
issue.
That's good news.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I shared a link. I shared the link with, I think someone asked earlier that I missed the question about their spouse working eligibility. I just shared that with everybody. Yeah, no, so between 2 programs, you're eligible to do a break that is less than 150 days, so 1 term, okay? As long as your first program is completed successfully, you have confirmed the admission for the second program that starts within 150 days. during those time, you're eligible to work full-time. Okay? Will it cause problem for your Pdwp? Not at all. That has nothing to do with your Pdwp. Your Pdwp, again, go back what I've talked about, is based on how you completed each program. Okay?
Harpreet has a good question. He's asking about if a student can do 2 different one-year programs at different colleges.
Yes, absolutely. You just have to make sure both colleges are DLI. Like I said, we shared that information here, who's eligible and the criteria, right? So the link, if you go back to the, let me just, here, I'm gonna share it again. So if you check the link, who is eligible, which school is eligible, right? You just have to make sure you meet the criteria to apply. Yes, you can study in a different school and add different credential together to apply for your work permit. Not a problem.
We have a question here that's talking about certain conditions that they're seeing on a study permit. I'm not sure if you addressed this one before, but can you just talk a little bit about conditions that students can expect to see on their study permit, like where they can or can't work?
Well, so usually under the conditions or remark sections, where it will say you have to attend a certain college or a certain level of a study, usually it will say designated learning institution, DLI. And under the remarks or condition sections, it also addresses your off-campus eligibility. So if you are coming to Canada directly to do a post-secondary program, then you should have that condition saying you may work. Okay, does that answer the question? Hopefully. If not, again, let me just go back here. If not, the link that I shared earlier about student, about working, go here, campus. So it gives you a very detailed information about that. It's right here. Okay. So Vanessa is asking, when I apply for Ptwp, my husband's work permit is able to be extended to? Possibly, yes and no. So read the information I have sent above. Okay. So again, like I said earlier, not automatically. Okay, the officer you are the principal applicant. Your spouse wants to have a work permit while you're changing your status as a worker. Your spouse is not automatically eligible for a work permit. Okay, just for everybody to understand. Actually, I'm gonna share these information I usually share during the different workshop, so you guys have it. Okay, can we not? So Hey Jung is saying, can we not take a break between the first year and the second year of a single program in order to get a Ptwp right? So if you choose to take a time off, you become a not registered student. So unless if there's a break that you finish level 1, level 2, there's a summer break, there's no level 3 offered, that becomes a scheduled break. But if you say, I just don't want to study, I'm going to take a break, you guys go ahead. So your classmates keep going. In that case, you become a not registered student. Yes, it will negatively impact your Ptwp eligibility. Why? Because earlier we talked about post-graduation work permit. To be eligible, your program has to be continuously full-time finished. When you become a not registered student, stay in Canada, you may not even be able to stay, depending on how long. And also when you choose to take a break, when you choose to say, you know what, you guys go ahead, I'm not coming back, I'm going to take some time off. So we're not even guarantee you there's a seat for you to come back. You may not be able to come back when you want to come back. And we also have to report to immigration that you're no longer here, or you're not here for this term. So then they have records of that you intentionally went off, right? So that's the reason why. How to check whether or not, I think we're time off, isn't it?
Yeah, I was just
time goes really fast.
Yeah, for sure. There's so much good information and important information that students really need to understand. So, thank you so much for walking us through and providing so much time to answer questions today. If students are looking to get in touch with a student life coordinator to get some advising on these immigration matters, how can they contact the student life coordinator team?
I think I shared earlier. Let me share that again. I shared the link for student to make appointment. So that's the link you can use to make appointment. There are 5 of us, okay? And I think 4 of us now could do immigration advising. So you have option of choosing what type of advising you need. And I quickly answer the student question, IXCHEL. Yes, you need to be a registered full-time student in order to travel to Canada. Okay, perfect.
All right.
All right, happy to be here. Thank you so much, Laura.
Yeah, thank you. I hope everybody has a really great day. Tomorrow will be day 7. Hard to believe we've already gone through 7 sessions together. But tomorrow will be day 7 and we'll be joined by the Library Learning Commons. And they're going to be talking about the supports that are available at the library and some other information about around academic integrity, which is very important. So we hope that everyone will be able to come and join us for that session tomorrow. Same time, same place, same link, and we'll see you there. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day. Bye now.